Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Divine Design Podcast. I'm sitting here super excited to interview Jennifer Salzman, the Executive Director of The Heights. Now guys, this is super exciting what she's doing and what they're bringing to Ellis County, something that is really, really needed. But Jennifer, what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about your story, girl. You are amazing. I ran into her. Honestly, I don't know what I was doing, but God sent me to her. Honestly, I wasn't even going to the Heights in your presentation. I ended up going to the building, going somewhere else, and just happened to see a sign, and it intrigued me. And so I walked upstairs, and lo and behold, I was at the end. Y'all had already finished your presentation, but I walked in, I said, hey, what is this all about? And Jennifer was just a doll, and she basically throughout your whole, hey, this is what it was. We ended up talking forever, but what I loved about her too is she is actually a butterfly girl. She has a tattoo. She's got a butterfly tattoo, but I do as well. And that was one other thing that I felt honestly kind of connected to you. But she is so intelligent and articulate about what you're doing that it just blows my mind. So number one, thank you so much for what you're doing. So proud of you to formulate all of this, bring these people together, and then be able to offer many services under one roof. And that's what I think is super exciting about you and what you're doing is bringing all these nonprofits together that are not competing against each other, but working simultaneously for the good of people to truly help these people that are in abuse situations or whatnot. Jennifer, I'm just going to open up the floor and let's just start talking about it. I want you to start with, first of all, maybe your story. What happened to actually prompt your whole family to get involved in this? And then how do you get 20 business leaders or leaders to kind of think in the same lines and go, all right, girl, we're in, let's do this. And how long has this truly been inception? How long you been working on this? So I'm just going to let her tell her story and we'll go from there.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a very incredible journey that is nothing short of the Lord unraveling each and every step. And it's been just so humbling to be a part of. And I'm really grateful for that. So
awesome.
For my family personally, my mom came out of domestic abuse when she was a child in Oklahoma. And back in the 50s, there were just not the resources that were needed. Right. And so I have this lens in life, if you will, that is being raised by someone who went through undealt trauma. And her coping for that was really having to talk about it constantly.
Right.
And so I just grew up with a very open conversation about domestic abuse and trauma and all of the things. And I didn't really think any differently. And so our family owns a cabinet company. And just because of what my mom went through, we've had a sensitivity towards women and children and their issues. And so, what the Lord gave us, the cabinet company, we were at least using that to work in that space. And so over the years, we've donated cabinets to several different organizations, whether that's shelters or women's centers, things like that, Dallas County, Tarrant County. And awesome. So that's just kind of how we got involved with this issue. Well, then fast way forward, I have siblings, and one of my siblings found herself in an abusive situation. And obviously, just the impact of that is so huge. It's just penetrating to an entire family. Right. And so really walking through that road with them was very impactful for our family. You don't realize how complicated all the different aspects of getting through these issues are. And partway through their separation and unraveling all of this, they actually had an incident, and we lost my nephew, my 15-year-old nephew.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. But it was a time for me personally where the Lord utilized me individually, even though this was not something that I was firsthand experiencing. It was that night at the hospital and this swirling of distress. My husband's law enforcement. He's been law enforcement for 18 years. So I knew that side of life. You know, I have that. I come from being the daughter of someone who went through trauma. I have that kind of already. I have a marketing degree, went through business school, so I kind of know some management. And what I found was that night I turned into a case manager, and I didn't have the language and I didn't understand that, but I just saw that need in that moment and was like, okay, you need to go here and do this. This needs to happen. You need to talk to law enforcement. So I kind of knew a lot of what was happening, and that's really where the Lord tugged at me when I look back now and realize where this began. Where did the heights begin? And
that's amazing.
Yeah, so from that night, really the process of grief and this, you know, having to get through it, we've spent months as a family really working through that. And once the dust began to settle, of course, you understand that doesn't just settle.
Right.
We then turned back to our family and said, okay, you know, the Lord puts you through things and you don't exactly know why, but it's what you do with those things that builds your character. And how do you impact society better? And so we really turned that conversation to, you know, the Lord gave us this company and we had to go through these things. And there are other families that have had to deal with this. And we've already started getting involved with this issue for women and children. But how do we do more? How do we make a bigger impact? And so we had gotten involved with a shelter in Dallas and had done some cabinetry work for them. So we had gotten a little closer to this issue. And when we finished that project, we really then discussed what now. And so we'd done work in Tarrant County, we'd done work in Dallas County. And so I kind of took a commission from the family to do some ministry out here in Ellis County where we live. My parents moved out here in 2000. My husband and I moved in 2012. And so I just dove in. And that was probably 4 years ago now. And what that meant was I just started listening and learning and attending, went to Nonprofit Coalition, Waxahachie Project, just started getting involved with an open ear, open heart, open mind.
Yeah, I love it.
And started learning who are the people in this amazing community doing work. And along the way, I met incredible people, but I learned two really important, significant things. One, we don't have a shelter in the entire county for emergency issues. If a family like my family needed somewhere and didn't have family to go to, what do? And the second component was, although there are phenomenal resources in this county, we didn't have specifics for families dealing with domestic abuse. And so that turned our conversation to, should we invest in building a shelter? My husband being law enforcement, he said, hey, look, there's an amazing organization in Tarrant County that I think you should look at. And that led me to touring One Safe Place. And what I quickly learned is they are a part of a national alliance. There's 150 around the world that create a multiple agency center in a community where you draw resources together, you connect other organizations, but you work holistically from law enforcement, the legal court system, your community-based organizations, your churches, and you combine those services to create wraparound services for these families. Because what we know, this isn't a one point in time. This is a journey.
Right.
So this is years of processing, and that they need support long term. And so what I love and appreciate it is not only is there somebody who's super local to us that we had as a resource, but there's this national resource. So we know that we're not creating something. Right. We are being able to duplicate and really look across the country, even across the world, because we're in like 24 countries now, and pull the best practices that match what our community needs.
Awesome. You know, Jennifer, what I love about you, though, is you could go on and on. Yes. And I love your passion, but you've really done your research and you've stepped into the community and you've actually met a lot of people and you've brought people together. And that's truly, I think, you're going to be blessed for that by the good man upstairs. But really, one thing I want to point out, too, is she's got, you know, this what do you call this? Brochure, not brochure, folder, but it's got a brochure in here. Let's talk about this very quickly because you've experienced, you said your mother and then a sibling as well. But I thought it was staggering. This has some great information in it, but it was staggering the numbers because really what we find about domestic abuse is, number one, we were talking about before we started this, that it's no race. Mm-hmm. It happens to anybody. And if you look at the numbers, it's kind of divvied out.
Yeah, it's really staggering statistics
throughout different races, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that, and the fact that you were telling 1 out of 3 women. Like, tell those statistics, because I really want our audience to see what these numbers look like. And you know somebody that's being abused, whether that be physically, mentally, verbally, whatever that may be.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's a statistic that is kind of astonishing in a way because it impacts everybody equally. And really you think, oh yeah, it impacts, but no, when you run national statistics, even down to each state statistics, it doesn't matter your socioeconomic status. It doesn't matter your race. And so that's where it's like, a lot of times the community will be like, oh, well, not here, somewhere else in that neighborhood.
Right.
That's not true.
No, it's really so
close. The reality is it is right here. It does not matter. And so you hit the target that 1 in 3 women experience intimate partner violence in their lifetime. That's a huge number. In my family, it's an even greater statistic. We're more than 50% of the women in my family have experienced it personally. And so if it's not something you've experienced personally with those kind of numbers, you do know somebody.
Right.
Your neighbor, your aunt, and I also don't want to diminish, men are also affected by this.
Right.
I think the number, I want to say nationally, is about 1 in 7 men experience intimate partner violence. Unfortunately, it's not as widely talked about. It's already a personal, private issue that's very challenging. And so, we want to make sure that even the men who are going through this have an avenue to get resources and to help. So we are open to that as well. But one of the other really important statistics for me, and I know for the movement for family justice centers, is that 3 out of 4 kids repeat violence that they grew up in a home with.
So they see it.
That is a huge statistic.
That is.
When you think about the next generation of what that means, that's where we really have to be intentional in working with families holistically. Yes, we need to work with this client who's the adult who's going through it, but what we really need to recognize is the children who are witnessing it and are living in it, even if they're not firsthand experiencing it, they still need all the resources and services. If they are experiencing it, thankfully, we have an incredible child advocacy center in our community that does outstanding work, and we are partners with them. And we don't want to do something that we're not specialized in. So that's why we collaborate. That's one of our core values, is not duplicating services. And so we want to make sure we partner with all those different agencies who are doing amazing work. And then we can step in and fill in the other gaps that are there.
What I think is awesome too is, all right, you guys are getting ready to build a huge building on the YMCA Boulevard in Waxahachie. So super excited about this. Look, I'm going to flash this up real quick if you can see that. But talk to me a little bit about this and when will this be ready?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, right now we're on a journey of waiting on the Lord for every little timing. And it's been in his perfect timing that each little step has happened. And so it's one of those, like, you have to be patient, but then it's also incredibly exciting to see this unraveling.
When he reveals and reveals and
what
reveals,
I'm seeing is the assurance that this is what he has orchestrated and gone before and pre-planned. And so every step of the way, it's a discovery of what has already been in motion. And so, we're excited. We are in office space now. We started out virtually, kind of coming off of COVID. The National Alliance, as well as One Safe Place, challenged us. You don't know what you need to know until you start working. So we just started providing services and really getting an understanding of what the community needed. And then we've been able to move to office space. We've been able to expand. We now have a staff of 5. And it's been incredible to see, you don't want this issue to be a booming business, but the reality is it's already a booming issue.
Right.
And so now it's just being able to provide better service.
Right.
So yeah, we're incredibly excited. I think, right now that the hope and prayer is that the Lord will help us expedite this journey. And that's kind of where we're prayerfully sitting right now, but we're planning, we're preparing, we're establishing all those partnerships.
Right.
One of the things that my family in our original discussions, we don't mind contributing, but we want to make sure that what we're contributing to is the right thing.
Right.
And that it's something that becomes a pillar initiative in Ellis County that long outlasts any of us, that's very sustainable from the county. And so my dad's an incredible businessman. I just admire wholeheartedly. And he reached out to some of his resources here and said, hey, we think this is a really huge need, and we want to present it to a wide variety of county leadership and make sure that we're not doing something that we think only. It's,
right.
Does this community
right.
really need this want it? And so we had that meeting probably about 4 years ago, which is what led us to having such incredible community buy-in. We brought in stakeholders and elected officials, community leaders from a very diverse, like multiple cities across our county, presented this idea, this multi-agency center, family justice center, collaborative effort, plus needing to build a shelter. And we got the receptivity we thought we would get is, yes, it's a need. Yes, we're going to back it. And they have wholeheartedly, I've been astonished and just humbled to be a part of it, because what the leadership in our community has said they have backed. And
that's awesome.
Yes.
When you have committed individuals coming together, and it seems like, the sky's the limit, honestly, with God backing y'all, doing this. And there's definitely a need. I'm going to tell you, when I first walked into Ellis County, I became a CASA advocate, and I did that for a period of time. But you know what, Jennifer, it was heartbreaking work. It's heartbreaking, to go and interview the people, and then, to go to court with them, and then not see these parents show up for their children and get their parental rights terminated. Man, it would break my heart to see things like that, because, of course, do you have children?
I do. I have 2 teenagers.
Okay, so you have children, I have a child, and, I just can't imagine not being there and having my parental rights, just terminated. But all in all, then of course I started selling more real estate, and kind of put that on the back burner. But, I was thinking about, I've had so much on my plate, but I'm like, there's such a need for individuals to do that, to help people one-on-one, but with your facility and what you guys are going to do, to be able to offer, kind of like, I don't want to say it like this, but it's kind of like one-stop shop.
Yeah.
That you actually have all these, different professionals giving different, from counseling to maybe they can even get a haircut, to doing different things like that, which I just think is really honestly so amazing. And I don't know what you know about the true need for this, but I look at this and go, there's got to be a need, just from what I've experienced, and just when I was ingrained with CASA, and, that kind of, I don't want to say that's that side of the community, but, you are where you specialize in. And so if people don't truly know the needs out there, and that the numbers are so staggering, that I'm just like, wow, I just applaud you guys and all the people that are coming together to do something for this. Because in my future, I don't know. And we talked about this when I ran into you that first time and we introduced ourselves. But I was like, well, Jennifer, I want to do this, this, and this, and I want to have workshops. I'll be able to teach people this, this, is this. And you said, you know what? You might be able to do that if that's really where the Lord was leading you, and you wanted to do that, because you're going to have a spot, for people to come in and do this.
Yeah, it is nice, because it really does open up to being able to bring, just what you said, multiple people, multiple professionals, all in one place to provide those services. We're even building a mock courtroom to be able to do court prep. We'll do,
awesome.
Court advocacy and be able to accompany those families. So there's so many other lenses. I mean, working with amazing organizations like Christian Women Job Corps will be moving in with us. So then you've got awesome. Job skills and training, and they're really just have been remarkable to adapt their programming for the needs. So that's been amazing. We're also putting in the only mental health clinic in our county.
Wow.
And so that's going to be an amazing partnership to be able to offer. Not only will they be able to just see community members, but then clients, they'll be able to work hand in hand. So it's just, those are just a few examples of the many different aspects that you just don't think about. I mean, there's some, even as obscure as there's a great organization who helps foster pets, Hearts and Tails of Hope, offering space to them to come alongside when a family needs shelter and they can't take their family pet. That's part of their support system, especially for children, but even for adults. So for us to be able to help them find a foster home that can take care of their pet and visit them while they're getting their feet back under them, then we can reunite them. So it's a huge undertaking, but it literally takes an entire community. And I've been so grateful that Ellis County has been open-minded and open-hearted yes, to what we're doing.
Wow. And and it didn't, and that's the thing, because you guys are really thinking about who are all these people that we needed to put into play. And the more that you learn and you go out and research and whatnot and hear stories and whatnot, you're able to put all this vision together with all the other community people and whatnot. I just think it is stinking fantastic, what you're doing. And when I talked to you that day, I literally was blown away, Jennifer. I walked out of there just going, Lord, what are you doing? Like, you're so awesome, but what are you really, really doing? And it's maybe just my walk and getting to know him more on a personal, connection, intimate connection. But I even go like, why did you have me meet Jennifer? Like, because everything that we experience, honestly, is spiritual. And I've learned that more in the past couple of days. I knew that, but now I really look at things a lot differently. God's all about later. It gives you a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. Like you even said, he reveals, he reveals, he reveals. And it's just amazing to me to see him work. And when you actually recognize that he truly is working in your life and he truly is giving you the vision and the dream and whatever that may be. I just think it's amazing. But I love your story. I love what you're doing. I love that. When do you think that this will be actually like a building, services?
And that's where I say this is that journey that the Lord's taking us on.
So what do you need?
We need funding.
Okay.
That's our biggest need, is to be able to get over that hurdle. We have a capital campaign going right now.
Okay.
Obviously, operations is bread and butter. We have to be able to provide services. Kind of our overarching philosophy is all of our organizations that we partner with on site, we use the term, it's not great, but you don't pay to play. So what that means is we don't charge lease or utility bills or anything to our partners that are on site with us, which then puts the operating budget burden on the Heights.
Right.
But what that does is that allows these amazing organizations to be able to put their funding into serving people, serving clients. And that's really what we want. And so then my goal as the executive director of the Heights is really to work on getting our operating budget really robust and very sound so that we can provide those best services. But then we also have this need to build this facility and get it up and running. And the reality is we needed shelter yesterday.
Right.
So there's no better time. It's an urgent need, and the Lord knows that.
Right.
And so, really it could be 2 years from now, it could be 1 year from now. It's however the Lord unfolds what he wants in his timing. Mm-hmm.
And so, but I think this is awesome. Thank you so much for definitely coming on to the podcast, because I think really what it is just getting your story out, getting this out to people. I know the community leaders, but more and more so that people can support you and whatnot. And maybe somebody will see something and go, you know what, I want to give, donations to them to be able to. So let's talk about that kind of, if you're willing to.
Sure.
When you say operating budget and whatnot to actually put this building into fruition and start services, what are we looking at?
Yeah, so today we're running somewhere around $400,000 annually to operate.
Okay.
When we make the transition to being a full facility, we add shelter, we add all of the other services, it's going to be over $1 million every year to run
annually.
and support. And like I said, that covers costs for multiple agencies to be able to work together. And then that way they can use their funds to provide services. And then wherever there's gaps, we will fill those gaps. And then, of course, to build the building, right now, we're looking at about $10 million needed. Okay. We've raised over 2 of that.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and we just have gotten started.
Right.
So it's not something that it's been in the works forever.
I know that y'all have had the vision and whatnot, but I just met you, I met you in I think it was summertime.
Yeah.
So, so all in all, okay, so that's great. So you're saying, you've already raised.
Yeah, we need a handful of $1 million to help finish the project, but.
Well, I'm hoping that, by doing this, too, and you continuing, to get your story out there and whatnot, people will support for sure. How do we do that? So let's say that today I want to write you a check. Yes. How do I actually give you money, and how do we do this?
There's a couple different options. The easiest is we have a website.
Okay.
theheightselliscounty.org.
Okay.
And there's a very easy donate. We are a 501c3. It is a charitable donation. We'll give you the tax receipt for it. You can always, if you're old school and want to write a check, come by our offices.
Yeah, I know.
And I feel like checks aren't circulating much, but they're still there. And so we would love, right now, we are at 100 Chambers Circle in Waxahachie, Suite 1010A.
Okay. Perfect.
So you can come by and knock on our door and visit us. So yeah, there's a couple different ways. I mean, we have a phone number that you can call and get connected to us. I also would love to share that number just in case there's somebody you want to refer that to. It's 469-616-3607. And so we want that to be out there. Kind of something we didn't exactly talk about is the reality is with those kind of numbers, we are really based on referrals. This is a personal, private issue. And so I try to get people to understand when I'm talking about the Heights, I'm not trying to accuse you or your family that, oh, you're dealing with this abusive situation. That's not it at all. But what I'm trying to do is educate our community that there's a resource and how do you utilize that resource. Right. So if you don't know about us and you don't have familiarity, then when somebody comes to you in confidence and shares something they're going through, you won't know where to send them. So it's so critical for me to get out in the community. So I'm so thankful that you asked me to come be here, because this is really what is
you were one of my first girls I thought about that I'm like, she's got to be on. Hopefully she'll come on.
Yeah, we just really want people to understand that we want them to be able to refer us. And so you're going to come across a situation pretty much when you least expect it. And then if you know about us, you know how to send them to us.
I completely love that you say that, they can call and they can get a myriad of probably connections or here's what you need to go for here. Now, my boyfriend actually works in recovery. So recovering drug addicts and alcoholics. But what I find is when I listen to him is that he has to outsource so many different things. So to be able to call one number and be able to get a myriad of connections and go, all right, or maybe you're connecting them. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, it's both, right? So that's what's beautiful about it is, we'll have internal partners that come on site or that are on staff. But then obviously you can't combine everything, right? And there are incredible organizations. So for instance, if someone comes to us and they need food, we have unbelievable resources, remarkable organizations in this community, and we can't take all of those in, right? So, but because we have a personal relationship, they know us, they trust us, we know them, we trust them. Then when we make that referral, we're not just, oh, here's a number. We say, hey, we're going to make that referral. We're going to hold your hand, walk with you, and make sure you get connected. Because that's one of the most frustrating things. And what we know, I hadn't even talked about this, is on average, they go back 7 times to their abuser before they leave.
Wow.
A lot of the reasons, yes, are the mental, emotional cycle of abuse, but a lot of the reasons are the barriers.
Right.
And it's
they may
just
not have
so
some place to go. They don't
complicated.
have family. They don't.
Yes. And so really that's where we stand in the gap to say, look, we're going to come alongside you, be right here with you. We're not leaving. We're a resource you can keep going back to.
Wow.
This avenue, you exhaust all options. If that one didn't work, let's go to the next. But we're going to stay the course with that family.
So you're holding their hand. Mm-hmm. See, that's great, because look, I'm going to segue this a little bit in real estate. I have a team, and what I tell them is always do the introduction and the connection to the loan officer, the top, whatever that may be. If you just give somebody information, most of the time they will not act on it. Yeah. So it's really, holding their hand and leading them and making sure that they are doing the connection with the right person, and then finding out what happens there and going from there. And if that's not the right connection, you bring them on to the next connection. So
and I think
I love
people
that
don't realize that trauma creates such a gap. And so a lot of people will be like, oh, it's so frustrating that they won't take the necessary steps. And what you're not considering is when you're in the thick of the trauma, what that physically does to you.
Right.
And so having somebody walk alongside you is not this kind of looked down upon. It's rather really this lifeline.
Yeah.
And so we need to be that.
Us holding them up.
Yeah.
And kind of, and I realized that, like you said, wow, 7 times. That's staggering to me, but it makes sense. I mean, I think honestly, you're saying your sibling and your mother, but you probably have been in a situation where you've definitely experienced some type of trauma, whatnot, whatever that may be, grief of the 15-year-old, your
my nephew,
things. So I think everyone has definitely experienced, trauma in their life, and it's what do you do when you actually, do you shove it down? And then it replays, like you're saying, because you're actually saying, I want to leave a legacy so that, we're breaking cycles in families. But that trauma, it's like, do you shove it down, or do you actually want to help yourself to live your best life? Yeah. And that's what this podcast is about living your best life too. But to live your best life. And I love that y'all are bringing this. And I love your passion. I love your heart. I love what you're doing. I just think this is phenomenal. I love that you came on the podcast. I love that we're going to push this out. And I'm hoping that, you get some calls, based on this, and be able to help more and more people. More importantly, guys, I'm hoping that you pick up that number. You go onto that website. It was theheightselliscounty.org. And donate, because there's such a need for this. The more that I've been in my trauma situations, and then I think about some of the relationships I've been in, and I honestly have been verbally abused. I've been physically abused. And what do you do about it? You honestly don't want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. And I love that you're giving a safe place, because I think what's more important than anything else is talking about it. And that's what this podcast is about too, is talking about things that people don't want to talk about, because that's what enables you to get the resources and to be able to actually heal and be able to maneuver differently and make different choices and decisions in your life, that I'm not going to do this again. And but you got to recognize and you got to accept. And so I think those are kind of the first spots, but I love what you're all about. And I honestly would love to talk to you more about how can I be involved? I see that you have a list, of board members, partners, and you've got a lot of partners and people that you can go to help. I want to know, how can I get involved? Not only just donating, but is there a way for me to get involved in this, or is this too late?
No, absolutely.
Okay.
There is never too late.
Okay.
We absolutely need more and more. The large scope of this, I kind of chuckle. A lot of people say, oh, don't bite off more than you can chew. And I'm like, yeah, except this is God-sized. Right. So it literally is his vision and what's happening. And so it takes that grand magnitude of involvement.
Okay.
And so that's why, I mean, I have a very large board, and a little people are intimidated by that. And I'm like, no, this is what the Lord's doing. And it takes this many influential people.
Right.
And really, you have to find people who have the heart for being a part of the community and helping. And
Absolutely.
so it's not too late. Please get involved. You know, go to our website. There's a way to contact on our website. You can send a message, say you saw the podcast, you know, want me to reach out to you, leave me your contact, I'll reach out. I think one of the really things I love about Ellis County is, yes, we're growing, but we're still a small town.
Yes,
we're still a small community, and we still have that mindset. And so even as the executive director, I go train law enforcement, I give them my cell phone. I want them to have a direct link to me, you know, and so even people, I say, you know, reach out to our organization. I will reach back out. It's not something that I'm so hands off. That's not like that. This is in the grind, in the thick of it. And I know how important and significant it is. And so I want to connect with the community in that kind of way.
And I love that about you, because we swapped numbers right then and there. And, you know, I think we were texting right after that. But like I said, I'm so happy that you came, that we're actually pushing this out, and just awareness of what's coming, what you're doing. Actually, you're already doing this. I mean, you've got an office.
That's what I was going to say. So today we're serving over 350 women and children.
Okay,
so this is it's happening. This isn't in the future. This is in the present. We deal with clients. We get a new client every 2 or 3 days. So it's something that's really an ongoing need. Something I hadn't talked too much about, but that I think is very significant, is our whole platform is safety and hope. And so when we bring families in, 1, it's confidential. 2, we go through a danger assessment with them. We create a safety plan. We create a service plan.
Okay.
And that service plan is all those different organizations that we're connecting them to. It's all by consent, with their permission. This is their story.
Wow.
You know, we're not forcing.
Right.
You know, we're walking alongside them, and they have control of this. But what we know is there's a science to hope, and hope is measurable, and hope is setting a goal, creating a pathway, and then having motivation to do that. And really, it's understanding that principle that will help reduce those barriers going back, will help really change and stem the tide of that next generation. And then what we know as a faith-based organization is it props the opportunity open to share eternal hope. And so if that's something a client is open to, you know, we're not going to force that.
Right.
But it's such a natural bridge to what safety and hope means.
Right.
And so you really have just this incredible opportunity to get involved in and impact people in the present, in their current trauma they're dealing with, and then really looking ahead to their future and what is beyond.
Awesome. I mean, wow. To think that, you know, if somebody calls in and whatnot, that you actually listen to all of their story, and then able to do a plan that is just, how do I want to say that? Like a targeted plan for them.
It's very
to just
individualized.
Go, all right, here's what, you know, here are the players that need for you, you know, to get you on path to, you know, from A to B, which I think is honestly fantastic. So that's kind of you saying at the beginning, you're like, I ended up actually kind of becoming a case manager. So it's almost, but I love that it's so specific. And I'm sure just, you know, sitting with you the couple times that I have, I can tell you're so passionate about what you do, and it shines through you. But you know what I really see, honestly? Because the more that I get closer to God, it's your light. You see Him shining out of you, and it's amazing. And so I'm so excited for you guys. I can't wait to see what happens. But all in all, I think we won't do it on the podcast, but I am going to reach out to you because I want to see how truly maybe I can help in some way, shape, or form. You know, I don't know if it's real estate related or if it's just maybe something more my story of how I want to give back to, maybe it's somehow, you know, confidence builder or something. Just my story, how I've become this, and how that I could possibly help somebody who's been in situations that I have honestly been in that I've not wanted to talk about, but how I have pushed through and overcome and not allowed those things to keep me down. And thank God I've been walking with God straight off and on, throughout my whole life. He's with me. But now it's like this super connection. He's just awesome. And to be able to speak with him and to actually hear him, to be still enough. And that's the main thing. So let me ask you one question. I'm going to ask you actually a couple questions.
Sure.
Do you actually pray, meditate, and journal?
I do.
You do?
I do. Yeah, I am very, very active prayer life, kind of very similar to what you were describing. I have walked with the Lord for years, and here in the later years of my life, my kids are getting older, and it's really turned into more of a daily fluid conversation.
Okay.
And so, I was raised, this is what prayer looks like. And it has really molded into, for me, the Spirit living inside me is very real and active and fluid in my thought and in my conversations. And so I'm beyond grateful for the job I have. And something that I encourage a lot of other people is to make sure you have enough margin in your life to be able to listen and to be able to walk with the Lord. Because if you're so busy, you don't have space to listen.
You're right.
And you don't have a moment to pause and say, okay, Lord, what is your response to this? And I'm going to sit and be quiet instead of try to guess and anticipate and push, And so that's been more present to me over the last several years that I've been doing this project, is based on, kind of what the Lord's journeyed me through to have that much more fluid conversation.
That is so awesome, because I thought, with me seeing what I see out of you, I'm like, she has to. And so that's why I thought I would ask the question. Now, I'm going to go a little further. Are you associated with the church?
I am.
What church do you go to?
I go to First Baptist Midlothian.
Okay.
I love the people.
Okay.
I am blessed to be involved with multiple churches because of the Heights.
Right.
So I love that, although, yes, that's my home church, I have the Avenue, the Oaks, the Midlothian Bible. I've got I could name so many more. I have so many incredible churches that I'm impacted and influenced being involved in their in and outs of their working with people.
Actually, I love that. And I love that it's all of them. And it's not just you saying, okay, it's First Baptist Church, Midlow, that's doing all of this completely supports us, which I'm sure that, you do get support from them. But it like you said, takes a village really to do all of this and that. But I think that's fantastic that you do prayer, or you journal, meditate in prayer. Do you teach this to your children?
I do. Yes, for sure. So I have 2 teenage sons.
Okay.
One is about to head off to college.
Oh.
And both of them, one of the main reasons actually we ended up at Midlothian, First Baptist, is the student ministry. And then I fell in love with just the people in general. But the student ministry there is remarkable. And I know there are remarkable student ministries around the community. But it's been such a great fit for them. And I'm really seeing that what our family has gone through, our boys have really grasped. What does it mean to have a bigger, more eternal perspective? And what does it mean to have a very personal, intimate walk with the Lord? Yes. Not, this is what the church does. This is what my family does. What does it mean to you individually? And so it's been fantastic to see that in my kids. My husband and son just got back from Israel.
Okay.
Oh, so wow. They got to go, for Christmas, which is fantastic time to get to visit and journey. And then I'm hoping I'll get to go with our younger son for his senior year. And so it's just really outstanding to see them really have that personal relationship that is their own. It's not what I'm wanting for them.
Right.
It's what they are wanting
for themselves. And, to have that connection with him. So I'm going to get a little bit more intimate with you, though. Okay, so you're doing this. When do you feel that you really decided? You said 5 years, really? Did you say that? Or but that you decided like, okay, this is something that I have to do daily, or something that, when did you really realize in your life? And maybe that was early on, that you're like praying, meditating, journaling, praying.
Yeah. So I think, I was always raised in the church, and it was very important to me. And I have very vivid memories of, at a very early age, accepting the Lord, but more predominant memory when I was about 12 of it personally changing within me, of a personal, what is it, okay, yeah, the church and what my family, but no, me personally. And then I would really say I walked well with the Lord from that point into my adult years. I think that probably within the last 6 or 7 years, a combination of traumas, losing grandparents, losing my nephew, helped bridge what I already knew and felt personally to the eternal. And so having that significant bridge,
yes,
changed my side of my relationship with the Lord. His side didn't change.
I'm about to cry.
But my side was impacted.
Wow.
And changed. And so it became more significant and more.
And what I find is that, it's almost like it's the trauma. It's actually what you go through that allows you, or maybe it's, I don't know if you finally realizing like, okay, either I'm not going to live this way, or whatever that may be, or I don't want to feel this again, or, and how you internalize that and then be able to, okay, well, what am I going to do with all of this? But it's my trauma. It's my trauma that has really caused me to have an intimate, personal relationship with him. And so I just thought I'd ask you because, it's interesting. I mean, Jennifer, I really do see him shine through you. You have a light about you. And, now I know that I'm going off subject, and I'm like, okay, now I want to know this girl's story based on what is her walk with the Lord. And how do you instill this in your family? Let me ask you this. Does your husband pray, meditate, and journal as well? Or
Yeah. Something that I've been very blessed by is he came from an incredible family that was very strong, faith-based. We both went to the same private school, which is where we met in middle school.
Okay.
Didn't start dating till a little later in life. But one of the things that, he's an incredible man. And even from early on when we were dating, still in our high school years, he had us start doing devotionals together as a dating couple and praying together as a dating couple.
I love it.
And so that's something we have encouraged our boys and talked to them very significantly about the impact that has made. Marriage is tough.
Sure.
Relationships are tough. No, I haven't had to go through the severe trauma that a lot of our clients and people that have to deal with. But that doesn't mean we don't deal with our own issues and our own trauma. And what we have found is the commitment we made before the Lord, and that commitment first has firmed our commitment to one another. And when we go through those harder times, when we fall back on our devotion time together, and we fall back on our prayer time, even if we're not feeling like we want,
right?
We're not in that space today, if you will. That is what is keeping us connected and keeping us together. We've been very blessed. We've been married over 20 years.
You don't even look old enough to be married 20 years. And then you said you had like, what, a 15-year-old?
15 and 17.
17
almost 18 and 16. So it's crazy how life goes. But I also just recognize that it's not what we are doing. It's by his grace and his leading. And I've been very grateful that that's something that's been important in my spouse and priorities in our family. And so
I love it. I think it's so important, and like I said, that's why I'm really doing this podcast now, Divine Design. It's actually, I feel like, my whole life I've manifested myself, and maybe God has definitely been there helping me, holding my hand. I feel like I'm a blessed individual, even even though you go through the ups and downs, but I want my life divinely designed now, which means that I'm listening to him. It's not me necessarily. I'm like, all right, I go to him now for everything, from little questions to big questions. Should I do this? Should I do that? And that's a different way to live. That's
so interesting. A part of the story that I didn't dive too far into is with our family business, the 08 to 12 recession took out a lot of our competitive business, and it took a toll. And we reached a point where we were getting very close to not being able to make it through it. And my dad talks a lot about what personally happened with him in his walk, and how it really took him surrendering this company over to the Lord's service. And it was that moment in time where, yes, you work and you do it because you need to build a life, and you need money and a livelihood and all these things. But there's a teetering point in which, surrendering that company over to the Lord, we were really, okay, if this is what you want, then we need to use it for your glory and be very intentional with that. And we took that very serious. And so it's been one of those major turning points in life that has so much significance to why we are able to do this. Why am I able to spend my day in, day out, is the blessing that my dad and the example that set the tone for this next phase. And it really is going, Lord, how do we use what you are giving us, whether it's small or large? How do we use it for your glory?
Right.
And then, people say, all the time, like, if you tithe, then you start seeing like more blessings. And it's the same principle with your time, your resources, your energy, your effort, and so those things that you give to the Lord are not just this exclusive little component pieces. It's a whole perspective, you yourself giving to him. And that's why I say those margins in your life, that's you giving of yourself, because it's so much easier to stay busy and be like, well, I'm on this agenda and I'm on this task, rather than to sit back and say, okay, Lord, like, you actually might have a different agenda for me today that I didn't see coming.
Right.
And do I have an openness to accept that, and a willingness to say, okay, well, I thought this is what the day held, but this is really what you had for me. And it's a huge turning point in how service can be provided. And so that's something that, working with my staff and working with our partners, and, we try to talk about and have these open conversations and say, hey, our work is ever changing. Every day a new client comes in with different issues, and we have to be in a place of receptivity where we can not be so busy, even though busy is doing the good and right things. And yes, we have to work. I'm not saying, oh no, we just sit around. We work hard, but you have to set up your life in a way that you're receptive to meet the needs at the present.
Right. And I think that was interesting what you said, is that you come to a point, or your father came to a point where he surrendered. And I would say that's what I've done too, is it's amazing when you completely let go and go, okay, God, I finally came to the conclusion, God, thank you so much for blessing me with everything that I have. Thank you. But not only that, this is all yours. I don't care about the stuff anymore. I don't care about all this. This is all your glory. But also, what do you want me to do? I'm going to say it, guys. I'm going to say it in the podcast. I literally have had conversations with him where I'm like, if you don't want me to do real estate anymore, that's all I know. 30 years, this is all I've done. I've helped many people. This is where my income is derived and whatnot. But I'm like, Lord, if you don't want me to do real estate anymore and you want me to be somewhere else, let me know. Because he'll start closing doors. Yeah. And that's how I know. And so it's been an interesting ride for me recently, because I'm at a certain brokerage and I was going to a different one, and all these doors open. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go back to my old brokerage. Door open, door closes. She contacts me back. Nope, can't do it, blah, blah. And I'm like, what do you want me to do, Lord? But then he opens the door to kind of go like, no, you're about to go get a broker's license. I'm like, oh no, that's 222 hours, Lord. But you know what? I'm getting ready to hunker down probably in the month of February and just go to school and go get my broker's license. And we'll see, but I feel like he opens doors and closes doors. You know when it's right because you feel it, or he may tell you. But it's just interesting because it's all about the act of letting go and surrendering and letting God. And I know we could probably talk about this all day long, but for somebody watching this that doesn't live their life this way, they don't really understand what we're talking about, and that honestly, the Lord is so present in our life and that we see him work, all day, every day, maybe not every day, but there are times when I see him more in my life. Like last week was a crazy week for me. But what I learned really is what I talked about a little bit earlier, that everything truly is spiritual and it is good against evil. Yeah. It is spiritual warfare. Not only do we have war here, but we got war up there. And truly, what is that all about? But last week I finally noticed on a Tuesday, it's all spiritual warfare. And I looked at what happened that day. It was good, it was God, and it was the devil. Good devil. And one of my girlfriends sent me something yesterday, which I sent to Nikki, my ops manager on the team, but a great inspirational little something from YouTube. But it talked about new level, new devil, that you're continually being attacked. And the more that you're walking in his direction, that you're attacked. Let's talk a little bit about that for a second, because I feel like you're so much in your purpose and your calling. What are your struggles and where does the devil come and attack
This is a fluid conversation that my family, both my husband and I, my family, my parents, siblings, and even my work family, we actively talk and pray for and against. That's something, we have a chaplain that we have on staff. I know that we need that resource because what we're doing is for the glory of what the Lord's doing. And what we're doing is really complicated and difficult and messy. And so it comes with that spiritual warfare. You are spot on. I don't know a better way to say it. And whether you share the same faith that we have or not, you're very aware when you're going through the midst of trauma of these negatives and positives, right? And so that's why I say it's nice to have the science of hope and the understanding of hope to create a bridge of conversation for people who may not share our exact same faith. Right. But it is very, very active situation and recognition. And that's why that fluid conversation is so significant to me, because I literally am going through the day in a conversation with the Lord saying, we had this negative, we had this attack, we have, this client's case, oh my, what are we going to do? What is there going to be this backlash, and it's constant. But what I know is being grounded and having your support system. And that's why this infrastructure, and this is one of the things I think I had told you before the podcast, I have our board and our staff read a book called Mission Drift. Yes. And Mission Drift is so critical because you don't want to deviate course. And that's those small spiritual warfare moments can cause drifting so easy if you're not aware actively and really keeping your guard alert. Right. And that's something that is challenging. Right. And I'm so grateful to have, our chaplain. I meet with her weekly. Okay. And we talk about these things. Wow. And I'm like, man, okay, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with that. And it's everything, personal, work, all the things. Because the reality is we're also human. Right. The people who are trying to serve, we're all human too. And so it takes a village. Right. We call it an MDT, a multidisciplinary team, but essentially it takes a village is what it amounts to. And so you really need that support system. And that relates to general population, but very specific to our clients.
Right.
Like, it takes a village. And so when you're in the thick of trauma, whether it's abuse, whether it's, addiction, whether it's whatever you're dealing with, when you're in the midst of that, you have got to have that support system, have that grounding. It's just so critical.
Absolutely. And it's very important, like you said, the grounding, because like I was saying, the most hellacious week, it almost made me think that divine design, that I was not doing the right thing. I was that attacked. Yeah. But it's so amazing how he works too, because one day I've got these thoughts and going, okay, Lord, all right, you let me know. But the next day I had almost this epiphany. And so I just think he's so interesting how he works. And I love that. Maybe I'm in a critical, situation or whatnot, but I love that I feel like I get answers revealed from him very quickly. He does not let me stay. And it's maybe because I've been in the valley for so long and I feel like I'm coming out, but I feel like now it's like, kind of in that motion. And I want to share that because I think what we experience too, daily, but honestly, it's so profound. And I've said before on this podcast that I can't imagine living my life any other way now. I want to be that close with him. I want to be connected with him. I want to hear him. I want him to guide my life, to navigate me. And I find that, I've got, the more I'm with him, the more I find I got one foot out in the worldly world, and I'm starting to step more and more and more. But like you said, we are human, so we are sinners. But the more that I can step in, my conversations with people are different now than what they were before. I may talk to somebody a whole lot differently, meaning what I've learned that I might not put up with something that I might have put up with before, because you're talking about being grounded in your mission. I'm going to read the book, Mission Drift.
It's great. It's an easy read, but it's fantastic.
And maybe it sounds like it's something that, if you're talking about it's something that I need to do, but I'm going to let you have kind of the last word. Is there anything else that maybe you want to chat about what you're doing? Maybe share a story, anything else that you wanted to chat about?
I don't know that anything like just huge surfaces. I just, I really just want to say that this is just such a personal thing that people go through, and you're not alone.
Right.
Like, you shouldn't have to do it in isolation. Whatever trauma it is, there's incredible support systems, and, there's incredible people. And so it's really finding the right resources and getting connected in the right way. And, for us, that awareness in the community I talked about earlier is so significant, because I need the average community member to have heard about the Heights, to understand our heart,
right,
and trust that our heart's in the right place serving.
Right.
And we need support to be able to do that. But we really want people to have an outlet, somewhere to go. And really that's what, at the end of the day, I'm just trying to get that awareness out in the community.
And get this out,
to,
the word
to
out.
kind of duality. I need awareness so that people can find us and find that safety and hope. I need people to be aware of what we're doing to help support us.
Right.
To contribute to it, help us be able to provide all the things that we need.
Right.
So, yeah.
I love it. I think it's fantastic. I think you have a fantastic story. I'm looking forward to getting to know you more in the future, because I do think that there's going to be a future here. But like I said, applaud you guys for God giving you the vision, the dream, and then for you guys to actually step out and do what God is telling you to do. Yes, we get attacked, but you will be victorious. You got God on your side, and that's what I truly, truly believe. But anyways, once again, Jennifer, thank you so much for your time, your story. Thank you just for being so amazing, doing what you're doing. Once again, it's the heritageelliscounty.org. He will actually subtitle everything. So that number's going to show up on the podcast.
Perfect. I'll have our website, stuff like that.
So if you need help, please reach out to Jennifer. But I'm also going to say, if you need help, please, you can comment on this podcast. Please definitely, if you like what you're seeing, subscribe, push the like button. But I love what you're doing, and I'm so excited to see what God is going to do in the future. So I think it's only time will tell, but hopefully it's going to be sooner as opposed to later. Once again, Jennifer, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.